Well, hey gang, we're going to look this week at the concept of perception. Perception is critically important both to how we look at public speaking and interpersonal communication. It has a wide variety of connections throughout the communication field. And so, in order to do that today, we're going to define it. We're going to look at some of the things that affects it, and then we're going to focus on self-concept. So let's share some screen here and get going. Right now, we're just waiting for it to load for my fancy title screen. You got to understand, this is the project that I started over the coronavirus situation. And so this is actually the first one of these, if we're watching it past 2020, and they either get better or get worse. You're seeing the first one that I recorded right here. And the basis of this lecture comes from Autumn Edwards, Chad Edwards, Sean Wall, and Scott Myers. Really impressive text, The Communication Age, which is one that I highly recommend. And we're going to use their definition of perception. Perception is the process of being aware of and understanding the world through selection, organization, interpretation, and memory. You can only see the world through your own eyes, through your own lived experiences. And your lived experiences and your background, your ability to interpret information is essentially what creates reality as you see it. And we're going to differentiate that from what reality is per se. But we're going to look at a couple of photos and see how somebody's experiences might change the way they look at the photo. For example, take a look at this picture. Just think about what you see in it. For some of you, maybe you see three middle-aged guys in a very sunny area. Maybe you notice some great sunglasses on two of the three men, some very cool hairstyles. Maybe you're drawn to the person in the center's hat. Maybe you happen to know who one of these three people are. Maybe you know who all three of them are. Or maybe you look at that and say, oh, this is actually a very iconic photograph. It's a photograph of Peter Fonda, Jack Nicholson, and Dennis Hopper. It's taken before the 1968 Cannes Film Festival for one of the most iconic movies of all time, 1969's Easy Rider. Now, if you're a fan of Easy Rider, or if you've seen Easy Rider, it's more likely that your perception of that photo would have something to do with that movie. However, if you are younger or you've never seen Easy Rider and you don't know who any of those three people are, you would look at the photograph based solely off of the things that you were able to notice. Things like hairstyle, things like the gender of the people in the photograph, looking at some of the architecture, things like that. All of these things affect the way that we perceive things. Kind of four of the biggest influences are culture, media, our experience, and language. And when we talk about culture, first, please don't confuse culture and ethnicity. We are in a wide variety of cultures, and while our ethnicity plays a role in our culture is much larger than that. Also, it's not just the media that we take in or choose to believe, it is all media that actually affects our perception. And the reality is, though, it is how we take that in. I'm going to show you another picture and tell me what you see in it. Not literally, of course, don't talk to your computer. Now, maybe you don't know who these people are. And so you look and you say, well, there's a guy in a very cool red leather jacket. And maybe he's got birds on his shirt. And there's another guy who looks a little more uptight. He's got a sport coat on. You look at the background. You're like, oh, maybe you're in there in a restaurant or someplace like that, a club. Maybe you recognize one of these two men as legendary movie star Brad Pitt. Say, okay, I know that this is probably a movie because that's Brad Pitt. Maybe you look at the other person and you say to yourself, that guy also looks familiar. It's actually Edward Norton, also an incredibly famous actor. Or maybe you've seen the movie that this scene is from, that being Fight Club, and you realize like, oh, this is a scene from Fight Club. And so by that theory, and we won't spoil Fight Club in this, but by that theory, you would be able to say, oh, somebody who looks at this picture and says, oh, this is a man talking to another man. You could say, no, 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 this is a scene from Fight Club. And actually it is not a scene talking to, from one man talking to another man. It's something else entirely. Now, let's look at how this might affect us. And it's a concept that we're going to look at called the self-concept. And people often take self-concept, self-image, and self-esteem and jam them into one definition. I don't necessarily think that that's the approach that we should take. Self-concept is the combination of our self-image and our self-esteem. And I think a good way to explain it is to use this metaphor. Both the definitions on the screen right now, but I think the metaphor works pretty well. The self-image is the picture that you have of yourself that goes on in your head. Now, everybody has a picture of themselves. Maybe it's accurate, maybe it's inaccurate, but you have an idea of what you look like, a picture of yourself in your head. Self-esteem is how much you like that picture. Now, understand the difference between that. One is a sense of understanding, and the other is a sense of feeling. Combine the two together, and you end up with your self-concept. So the self-concept is the combination of the self-image and self-esteem. Self-image being the picture we have of ourselves, self-esteem being how much we like that picture. So as we wrap this up, we're looking more and more at a world where face-to-face communication, technology, and media are starting to converge together. And with that, we have new possibilities, new creations. And so how we understand the world, and equally as importantly, how we understand ourselves, is changing drastically. Have a great day, you guys. Just kind of waiting to film a Zoom meeting here. It's not as easy as you would imagine on this first one. I'm going to click this button and see what happens here. It's still going, isn't it? Yeah, it's still going. Still just hanging out. There's our stop share. Took me a while to find that. And we're going to stop recording. Have a great day, guys.